Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is close. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear close used is to mean to move or cause something to move in order to cover an opening. So, with this first definition, we might think of the opposite action of open, right? It's close. We can close windows, doors. We can even close our mouths. A second way you might hear close used is to mean to bring or come to an end. Sometimes as people are speaking, right? And say this presentation is coming to a close, right? It's reaching its end. Might also hear this with various shows, musicals, and this idea that they are ending. A third way we might hear close used is to mean to end business operations. And by ending operations, we could either mean temporarily, right? So we might think of the store closes at 8 o'clock, right? Each day, that's the time it ends its operations. Or it could be used to mean that a particular business is permanently ending their operations, it's permanently closing. You should know that close is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this, we need to drop the E and then add ing to form closing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are going to be made by an ed ending, but our base verb already ends in an E, and so we're never going to have two E's in a row like that. Our base verb close ends in a voiced Z sound. So our past tense ending is going to make a D sound. And we're not adding an extra syllable as we say this. So the past tense and participle forms should sound like this: closed, closed. Okay. Now, we're going to spend a significant portion of this video today looking at phrasal verbs that utilize the verb close. Now, I want to note I haven't captured every single phrasal verb with close. I tried to pick out some of the ones I think you're more commonly going to hear or see, and that might be more useful to better communication. So, the first one we're going to discuss is close down. This connects back to that third definition we just looked at. So, the meaning here is to stop operating something. An example here: the bank has closed down a lot of branches over the last few years. Has closed down is an example of the present perfect. So, we're talking about an action, it started in the past, continues into the present. So, this bank has stopped operating some of its satellite locations, its branches. The next phrasal verb is close in. This means that someone or something is approaching or getting near. An example here: the police were closing in, so the criminals decided to leave the country. Were closing in is an example of the past progressive or the past continuous. So we're talking about an action that was in progress when something else interrupted it here. And here, that interrupting action is the decision to leave the country. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is close off. This can have a number of different meanings. We're going to talk about three of them. The first is to prevent access to some area or maybe even something. An example here: we'll close the street off to hold the outdoor art festival. So here, we've got a contraction with will. This is short for we will. Will close the street off is an example of the simple future. And so here we're saying we're going to prevent people from being able to drive down this street while we hold an art festival. A second way you might hear close off is to mean to isolate or maybe avoid some sort of emotional connection. An example of this: she really closed herself off to others after her husband passed away. Here's an example of the simple past tense, and we're saying this person maybe stopped communicating, stopped sharing, stopped having conversations as a result of this event. A third way you might hear close off is used to mean someone is refusing to listen to other ideas, opinions that are different from that particular individual's. An example here: students, don't close yourself off as we explore these different ideas. So here, teacher is encouraging her students to have an open mind. Don't close yourself off here is an example of the imperative. We're giving a command. We're telling someone to, in this case, not do a particular action. So again, students don't refuse to listen to people who maybe have different ideas or opinions. The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is close on. This is used in connection to buying property. So when we're completing that process of either buying property, like a home or a house, or selling a home or a house or other building or land, you might hear this phrasal verb used. So an example here: when do you close on your new home? This question is an example of the simple present, right? So we're asking essentially about a fact, about a situation here in the present time. So when is the sale going to be complete? The next phrasal verb we'll discuss is close out. It can also have a number of different definitions we're going to talk about too. The first is to stop using something. So an example here is the question: how do I close out my account? Right? How do I put an end to this? How do I stop using this particular, could be a site, could be maybe it's a bank account, who knows, but we want to stop using it. A second way you might hear close out used is in reference to selling leftover or remaining inventory of some item that's just not going to be continued. Maybe it's not going to be sold in this particular store, or maybe it's just not going to be made or manufactured any longer. An example of this: the brand is closing out this model, so all the remaining inventory is on sale. Is closing out is another example of present progressive, so we're talking about something happening right now. And this is sometimes an exciting thing to hear. If you're shopping for something, generally you're going to get a better deal, a lower price, because this item is not being continued. Our next phrasal verb is close up. And this can also have a few different meanings. The first way to use close up is to just refer to shutting something, locking something, sealing something. An example here: will you close up the house before you leave? This is a question in the simple future. And here, if I heard someone say this to me, if I had a family member say this to me, I would think about shutting the windows, making sure they're locked, making sure the doors are locked before I eventually leave. A second way you might hear close up used is uh, connecting back to that third definition of the main verb we looked at, so stopping business operations. An example of this: many businesses closed up during the pandemic. This sentence is an example of the simple past tense, and unfortunately is also a true statement. Many businesses had to stop operating because of challenges related to the pandemic. The last phrasal verb we're going to discuss today is close with. This means that we are concluding something. An example here: the show closes with a solo. So we might again think of this like ends. Maybe we're referencing a musical performance, right? And a solo, one person singing or performing here. So the show ends with this particular piece. Now let's spend some time looking at words that are related to our verb close. And the first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So same spelling, exact same pronunciation. So the noun close can be used to refer to the end of some event or maybe a period of time or the end of some activity. An example might be, as the meeting drew to a close, we made a list of next steps. So again, we're referencing the end of this particular activity, a meeting. Another way you might hear the noun close used is to refer to the end of the day of trading on the stock market. So, an example of this, at the close, the Dow Jones was down 450 points. So, just means, again, the end. The next noun you might hear is, I thought it would be good to reference one of our phrasal verbs. So we talked about close out. A closeout sale is an example of the sale of goods, of items, and generally their prices have been reduced. They're much lower, and the idea is we're getting rid of extra items. So, an example here. We got new living room furniture at the store's closeout sale. Now, the last thing I want to point out today is that we have a, a word, looks exactly the same, right? Same spelling, but we have a different pronunciation for the adjective form of this word. So close, as an adjective, the ending sound is going to be pronounced with an S instead of a Z. So let me point out again, with the verb, I keep saying close. Hopefully you can hear that Z sound. But when I use the adjective form, I'm going to say close. Hopefully you can hear that S sound. So as an adjective, close means a short distance. An example here. The park is very close to our house, right? Not a far distance, a short one. The word close can also be an adverb. So again, adjective and adverb are going to be pronounced in the same way, and that's with an S on the end. So as an adverb, again, it means in a near position. An example here, please stand close to me. Right? So we're telling someone how to do this particular action. I hope this video has helped you better understand how to use the verb close. I really appreciate all the new subscribers, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.